Alright guys, we are on part 5 for the KX250 rebuild. Last video we did the top end of the motor, we finished the right side, and basically made sure the whole engine's good. We have a few things like the covers, the power valve covers, and the reed cage. We're going to save that for last. Right now we're going to actually work on to the actual bike itself. So we're going to do the tires today, we're going to do the bars, we're going to do the front brake caliper, and reservoir swap out. We're going to do new grips. We're also going to do the rear shock rebuild. After that's done, we're going to clean down the frame, wipe down the swing arm, get it as best as we can get looking, and then we're going to drop the motor if we have time. If we don't have time, there will be a part 6. But without further ado, let's get started. So first things first, we are going to take the front wheel off. We are going to take off the caliper because the caliper is blocking the pinch bolts, at least the line. Grab this little bracket. Spin it off the wheel. Now, once all 4 pinch bolts are loosened, what we're going to want to do is tighten just a little bit. Pinch bolts on this end to actually clamp down so we can actually spin the axle out. So the axle nut is a 22. And then just slide the axle out. Honestly, not bad at all. And now with this off, that was just one 8mm. See that right there? And now front wheel is off, caliper is off. Before we want to install the rim, when we have the new tire on it, we're gonna want to put the new caliper back on here. Okay, so this is how front brake is held on this bike. Looks faster to me. So basically, we found they didn't have the new one on OEM semi called Kawasaki, and by the time they could have gotten it, it would have been backwards. So we found a used one on eBay, actually a whole set with the reservoir and the caliper itself. This caliper works just fine, it doesn't leak at all, and the line actually looks to be in good shape. No kinks, no cracks, nothing like that. Again, it's not leaking. We have an option, again, we have a whole set, so we can just swap out the whole set. If not, we can just swap out that reservoir. Let's get this new tire on. Alright, we're gonna grab this, bring this over to our tire stand. So now we have the tire on the stand. First thing we're gonna wanna do is remove the valve stem to get all the air out of the tube. And we're just gonna loosen the lock nut for the valve itself all the way off so we can remove the tube. And then the rim lock, we're gonna loosen that to the last thread, not all the way off because you don't wanna lose the rim lock going in. Okay, there we go. So now with the air out, we're gonna wanna break the bead. Some tire stands have bead breakers in it. To be honest, most tires you can just muscle it out. If not, with these tire irons, it makes it a lot easier to break the bead. But this one I really think should just... Okay, that was a little harder than I thought, but we got it. Bead's broken, so now what we're gonna do, flip it on the other side, break the bead on this side, same thing. So now that we got that off, what we're gonna wanna do is, you can use tire application or tire lube or whatever. Realistically, if you have soapy water, it's the same thing. So we're gonna get some warm water in the sink and we're gonna get some soap in, and it's gonna work just fine. So we got our soapy water, and basically what this does, or tire application or lube or anything, all that does is makes the tire slippery, so it makes it easier to get it on and off the rim so it doesn't bind up or catch anywhere. What I'm gonna do with the bead broken so the soapy water gets in between the tire and the rim. That's all you gotta do. Don't have to go crazy with it. Now this tire is old and not in the best condition. I don't think this is gonna be an easy tire to get off. With tires, biggest key is to do small bites, especially if it's old and giving you a pain in the ass. Wow, look at all those dry rots right there. Looking great. All right, we're gonna get it in first with these two, and then we're gonna use the third right here, just to give us a little bit more leverage. And we're gonna basically throw this bead buddy right there, get this tire iron out. All of our tire irons while that bead buddy holds the tire in place. You just walk it along. The first few ones are gonna be hard, but once the tire is about a quarter way off, it eases up just a bit. Alright, and there we go. We have our tire off on one side. There's a few different ways to take the tire off. What I do at this moment, I take the tube out, get your fingers down in here, and I just basically rip it out of the tire, throw that aside. And then the next thing to do, which I found was a trick, is basically flip it over and do the same exact procedure that we just did on the opposite side. And a lot of people are like, that makes no sense, then the rim's gonna get stuck inside the tire. What it does is it pushes the rim inside the tire on one side, leaving a lot of room on the other side, so you can just bend the tire down and it comes off fairly easy. I'll show you exactly what I mean. A little soapy water all around. Same thing we did on the other side. Tire iron in. Okay, good. The other one in. Okay. There we go. And now look, while I'm taking it off, you're gonna see the tire shift. See right now, it's pushing the rim inside the tire. And it's gonna leave us a space in between the rim on the tire on this side. There we go, you got a little bit of space. Take the bead buddy out. And what we're gonna do is just push down this side, slowly feed it over. There you go, tire's off. So with that, every time I do a tire change, I inspect the rim, make sure there's no sharp edges or anything like that when we put the tube on. This one did not have a flat when we took it off, so I don't think anything's bad with it at all. It always makes sense to double check your work before you put everything back together. Rim tape looks fine, all the spokes look fine, the rim lock looks fine, so everything looks good. So what I'm gonna do is actually take this old tire out of the way. I'm gonna clean the rim up just a little bit, and then we're gonna get the new tire on. So now to clean it, same thing. Get some soapy water. If your rim's really, really dirty, gross, or you just want to get it absolutely spotless, you can get a nylon brush or a very, fine wool brush, and it'll clean everything off for the most part. You don't want to get all the water off because again, the water will act almost as a lubricant. So now the rim's kind of prepped, all ready. Let's go grab the tire for him. So we got front tire row on for him. Okay, now front tires are directional. There should be an arrow rotation, which means it should be spinning this way. You grab it. When you install it, you push the rim lock up so it doesn't catch on the tire. Pushing it up, getting the rim lock right in there, pushing a little bit, feeding in. You want to see how much you can push on without actually having to use the tire irons. Grab 2 tire irons again, and we're gonna flip them a little bit differently. So I'm getting that lipped on, basically just poking out right there. And then when that's there, then so now what that did is that pulled the tire on the rim just a little bit. So again, push down the tire, feed it in, take this one out. 1, 2, tire is on. Move it back over. And now at this point, we're gonna wanna feed the tube in. This tube we looked over, it's fine. It was holding up and everything, so we're gonna soap up this tube and get this installed. As you can tell already, that tires, it could be a little bit of a messy job. I think with tires, the more mess, the easier it goes and the less chance of having to do it again for. So we're gonna lay this out on top of the tire, just like so. You're gonna have the valve line up to where the hole is. And then when we do that, we're just gonna feed in just a little bit, make sure that we're straight, and then just shove the rest of the tube in before putting this all the way in. I'll show you why. Now by this point, what I found is another trick. Pop up the tire here, grab a tire in from the opposite side, and push that down there. Now what that's gonna do, I'll show you. That basically holds the tire on that side, so when I'm pulling up on this side, the tire doesn't go past the valve hole and you can't even fit the valve in. Now, I push the valve in, just like that. Now, what we're gonna wanna do, before we take this small tire iron out, once we're in, you're gonna wanna take this tire iron out, and now if the tire iron is not straight, just like that. You just spin it, tire on the rim, and you're all set. Now what I do right here, which is gonna be a little trick, grab your pump, your compressor, your handheld compressor, whatever you use, and you're gonna put just about like 3 PSI in there, just a little bit, and you'll see it fill up and it'll basically sink into the tire itself. Okay? And then you just, and now the tube is pressed into the rim. Now with that all being set, we want to make sure that on the rim lock it's fully pressed in where it's not going to pinch on the rim itself. We're all set, so now it's basically just reverse, get this thing on. Now installing the rim lock. You push that in. Alright, and the last one should just pop right in.
Yep.
So what I'm doing is I'm filling it up to enough PSI to have the bead set. You can tell the bead, see that little ring right there? See how it's pressed up there, but then down here it's not fully pressed up? I'm gonna fill it up and you're gonna see this thing pop out. Alright, you're gonna wanna get your valve stem back in and then fill it up to your desired PSI. Alright, now we're working on the back wheel. Get the cotter pin out. Let's find the axle diameter. There we go. Now we have to swap out the rear tire. Okay, so we got the tires on. Now the next thing to do is rebuild this shock. What we're gonna have to do first to take the rear shock off is we have to get these all the way loose. So. Wow, this is gonna be tight. So right now I'm spraying just a little WD-40. Hopefully you should loosen up the thread just a little bit. So once you just crack it just a little bit, you should be able to grab the spring just like that and twist it the rest of the way. Well, this will show why we're rebuilding the shock. Probably no air, no oil, nitrogen. Here are two pieces right here. Once you get these out, two pieces right there. This one slides out just like that. And with that out, this can slide. And then your spring comes out just like so. Let's see how bad this actually is. Yeah, this was not a shock. This was just a guy riding on a spring, bouncing around down the street. So first thing we're gonna want to do is get this cap off. You basically just get a flat head, two sides, and then hammer it off. There we go. All right, it is out. There should be a clip right in there. Now to get that clip out, shock spring compressor. Drive all the way down, and now we can see that clip. See that? Sometimes this clip is a pain and a half to take out, especially if it has not been worked on. There we go. I got that off now. This should just twist out. It's not, I don't see it being easy. Never mind, it was pretty easy. Look at all this oil. That's awesome. We're gonna clean all this off. I'm gonna even put those in the vapor blaster and get this cleaned up a bit because this is absolutely disgusting. Get it back into the vise, and we need to remove this nut right here. 17, you're gonna loosen this nut. Oh my God. So we got the, I actually didn't show, sorry. So this is the actual valving that drops on right there. What I do is I just get a screwdriver, that's a Phillips head, go in that hole right there and slide it all up here so you don't lose the order. There's a bunch of shims, washers, and the valve itself. You won't lose the order of that. So you slide it up, get on the screwdriver, and put that to the side. You don't have to worry about that at all. This is the actual seal, which is why all the oil leaked out, because this is absolutely just disgusting. Some kits, you can replace the duster seal, the O-rings, and all that stuff, and keep the housing, but Tusk comes with a brand new piece. This is what it should look like. It comes with a new snap ring too, which is good. So what we're gonna do right now is we're just gonna take off this bottom piece. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna throw this in the vapor blaster. When I'm vapor blasting shock components, you wanna refrain from getting it on the shaft itself. So I'm just gonna clean this up, get this just looking a little bit better than it does. And then I'm gonna also vapor blast this. So these will look pretty good. We're just gonna go quickly over them. We're not gonna go crazy because it's the shock. it'll bring it back to life real easy.
Yep.
Okay, so we got the parts vapor blasted, as you can see. Quickly ran over them, cleaned them up a bit. Everything's looking really good. So first, bracket there, and you go with the cap. That goes next. Sorry, battery died on the camera, but we got this seal on. Basically, how you do that. It's very similar of the bullet that we showed in our previous video of the fork. Basically, it just goes on here, cuts off any edges, and then you just slide this on. Obviously, you use grease up the seal. We're good, we're on, everything's looking good. So now we're gonna clean the valving off because it is just ugly. So we're gonna clean it off, spray it with parts cleaner or brake cleaner, both same thing, or suspension cleaner. We're gonna get that on, we're gonna torque that bolt down, get it all set, then we are going to bleed it, and I'll show you exactly the process. With the seal on, valving is clean. Now you can actually see the blue of the shims and the chrome or the metal look, so that's a good sign. We're going to put this on and just take your time. And it's gonna be a little bit of a pain to shimmy them all on. No, don't force it. There we go. Valving is on. Get the excess grease off, but that's looking good. So now we got our valving on, we got our seal on. Just look at the difference between this and what we started with. This doesn't even look like a 1994. This looks better than a lot of 2020s I get. Everything looks good. Now we are going to put this bolt on. Just use red Loctite and torque it to spec, and you're fine. You don't have to worry about that. All right. So we're going to get it on with the drill, and then we are going to torque it to spec. So we are looking good. We're going to let that sit. Now we're going to first clean the inside out with just using brake cleaner and a rag. This is more brake cleaner than it ever has that had oil. All right, everything's looking good. Make sure we got all the excess brake cleaner out before we put shock fluid oil in. And now what we're going to do. All right, now for this. This is how you bleed your shock. You're gonna get shock fluid. We use Maxima. You can use Bel-Ray or anything else. You're gonna pour it all the way down. Just about there first, and then we're gonna have to bleed the system. So by doing that, see how there's the hole in the rod right there? And then there's the 2 holes on either side. That's how you bleed it. We also have a video, the first video I've ever posted on my YouTube, doing it on a YZ125. So if you guys want to check out a more in-depth process, or if you want to see it from a different, if you have the KYBs and the Yamaha, check that out. Basically all you're going to do is just push up and down. When I'm pushing down, fluid's going to come out of those holes, just like that. And you see the air bubbles. You're going to push down, and then you're going to push up. When I push up, this level is going to go down, because it's going to be sucking in the fluid. Point of bleeding is the same thing as hydraulic brakes, any hydraulic system. You want no air, and you want all fluid. You do this over and over again until there's absolutely no air bubbles coming up. We still have air bubbles coming up, so we're going to keep doing it. Nope, a lot of air bubbles towards the end. Okay, we're all good. We're pushing down. Oh, never mind, we got one more bubble. We're all good. Let's do one more take just to make sure there's no air in here. Okay, we're good. So now with that, we're going to push this seal down in there. It's going to get a little messy because the seal is going to push the just like that. It's going to push the excess oil out, and then we're going to have to use our new snap ring here to push it in. So we pushed the seal down, and now we just got the snap ring in its place. Got a little messy. We're going to clean that up before we actually finish up. And what I'm testing right now is to make sure that we seated the seal and there's still no air leaks. So if there was an air leak, it would go down, it would skip, it would go fast, hard, fast, hard. This is getting harder as it goes down, so which means it's working as it should. And as pulling up, it's pulling in a smooth operation. That means that we bled it correctly. And with that being said, we can basically hammer this back on. And that's all good. We'll fill it with nitrogen, and then I'll show you exactly how to tell to make sure that you are set with your nitrogen and your fluid, and we'll take it from there. Popping this little guy on. All right, clean it off. Okay, everything's looking good. We're gonna get this filled up with the air, and we'll get back to you. So we now have the nitrogen in there. We have the oil in there. We bled it. Let me show you exactly what a shock should look like when it's done, or if you're just servicing your shock. Should be tight to push down, nice and slow. And then when it comes up, it should come up smooth and slowly. It should extend all the way as it did, showing us that our shock is done. It's rebuilt. That little ring is grease. I know some of you trollers might be like, ah, the seal's messed up. No, that's just grease because I greased the shit out of it. That shows that our shock is good. Again, this is looking completely different than how we got it. I'm super happy we did this because if not, the guy would have been bouncing around the trails and everything. So shock is rebuilt. The only thing we have to do is I'm gonna throw this just in the vapor blaster just to get the gunk off and everything. I don't feel like going at this with the brush. Just gonna spray it off real quick, put this on, put the clips on, tighten down those retaining bolts on top, and then this shock is done, and we'll get back to you when this is done. Spring is clean as best as we're going to get it. So we're going to drop it on just like that. Very, very easy. I'm gonna leave that right there. Now this is the bottom spring retainer. Fits just right on the spring, just like that. And this slides right in there, and that goes right there. Very, very simple. Now what I'm doing is just tightening the spring. This is actually how you set your sag. And now it's gonna be acting a little bit different than before because now on top of the spring, the shock is actually a shock. Crazy, right? All right, we're gonna set the sag later. This guy's a little on the bigger side, way taller than me, so a little bit less sag than I would for me. And there we go. We have a freshly rebuilt, obviously we didn't revalve it, but a freshly rebuilt rear shock. Thing is awesome, completely different than how we took it off. Obviously the aesthetics of the look, it's actually working like a real shock now. There it is, nice rebuilt, 1994. KX250 rear shock. We're gonna put that aside for now. The bike has a few little more stuff that I want to do cosmetically on the frame. I'm gonna want to re-grease the swing arm bearings. I want to actually clean the swing arm itself, and then I'm gonna want to do brakes. I want to do the front brake. We didn't have time tonight, so we're gonna actually end it here. Like I said, there's a few other things that I want to get done on this Kawasaki before we actually drop the motor in and before I put that rear shock in there. That's gonna conclude part 5. We will have basically the rest. We'll clean up the frame, put it all together, put the engine in, and you'll get the first startup. So stay tuned for that, and thanks. Catch you then.